Welcome everyone to Quantum Leap. I'm your host, Toyin Umesiri, author of Mindset of an Entrepreneur. Today with me in downtown Aurora at our studio is Mr. Matt Shawit.
Sharritt, yes.
Sharritt. I'm super excited because listen, as an intellectual, you're a professor. I love going into the intellectual side, deeper into business and mindset and philosophy. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yes.
Yeah,
So let me quickly just read an highlight of your background.
yeah,
So, Mr. Matt is the founder of two Naperville based businesses, situated Research and Q Camp.
correct. Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
He's also the founder of the Naperville Business Network. We're going to dive deeper into that. And also the president of Naperville Outdoor Alliance, a local nonprofit organization focused on helping underprivileged kids participate in outdoor activities.
Right. Yeah,
Looks like you have your hands filled. You're
I
very
do.
engaged in community activities. You and your wonderful wife, who have had an opportunity to engage with together. You're really making a lot of impact in Naperville. So, congratulations to all your successes.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
I also know that you're originally from the region, but you left and then you came back. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So I was born and raised locally here. I grew up in Naperville. I went to college for 11 years, so I did my bachelor's, master's, and PhDs back to back. So, yeah. So I lived in Milwaukee and then went to University of Hawaii after that. So, cool experience. But great to be back home around family and so yeah, so that's kind of how we got going. So my wife and I started Q Camp and Situated Research back in 2008. So we've been at it for about 15 years now.
Lovely. I also love your background. PhD in
Communication and Information Sciences.
fantastic.
Yep,
And you've done a lot of research when it
I
comes
have.
to human interactions with computers and machine and all of that.
Exactly. Yep.
Lovely. You're
Yeah.
speaking my language.
Yep. Yep. I know you have a background in computer science as well. My master's was in that, and yeah, my focus has been user experience research and just trying to make things more intuitive and user friendly. So that's a lot of what our businesses do.
Yeah,
So
I really love it because oftentimes, even in the world of technology, there's this whole philosophy behind coding and the machine and the hardcore sciences.
mhm.
But the interface, the human experience is where emotion
Oh,
really
very much.
exactly. And I love that aspect because
I love it too. Yeah. A lot of psychology involved.
exactly, because
Yeah.
the traditional education system focuses more on IQ, but I think the world of business leans heavily towards EQ, connecting with people, human to human interaction, human to computer interaction, because
Yep.
for it to really work well, the machine almost has to behave like us.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of, programmers will design software to behave the way they conceptualize how it works. And a lot of times the users don't, have that same mentality. So they come in and they can't figure it out. So
Right.
that's where user experience really, comes into play and helps make it more intuitive and easy to use. So,
Fantastic.
yeah,
And the real world, reality versus fantasy and the dream world, right? How do
exactly.
we
Yeah.
connect the two? So I'm really with you on that. So let's bring it to, nurturing business communities. You've invested heavily and in growing the Naperville Business Network. How did that start? Why did you start it? And what has the journey been so far?
Yeah, so we started our business in 2008. We were looking for ways to meet local businesses. So we saw LinkedIn really starting to grow back then. So it was really attracting a lot of professionals. And we started Naperville Business Network as originally as a group on LinkedIn. So this is a way to start discussions with local, business owners, people in the community. So for a few years, that's kind of how it went. It was a really big kind of growing thing on LinkedIn. It was just a group on there. So about 5 years back, we took it face to face because it was just growing to a point where it was like, okay, let's try, meeting up and seeing if it, has legs, and it did. So, yeah, we started meeting in person, going, hosting local events. So, we'll do things from having guest speakers come in to talk like about a topic that can help other, business professionals. We also do local meetups as well. So like just last night, actually, we had a happy hour over at Empire Restaurant in downtown Naperville,
Hmm.
and we had like over 50 people show up, and
Wow.
a lot of this really natural kind of organic networking, so we try to structure the group in a very casual, this relaxed, fun way. Like, I always had a hard time, like, when I first started in business, I was always nervous and, a little bit scared to get out there and talk to people. And I just didn't like some of the existing groups where it was very structured and it felt like stressful. You go in and expect to bring people leads, or um, my wife went to one where they penalized you. They had to put dollars in a tip jar if you didn't show up with leads.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of thing is like, I try to, move away from that into
Right.
something more casual. And our events are very this relaxed. We'll meet at like we've met at like local breweries just to hang out, have a beer with somebody, get to know them, make friends.
Right.
I think, for in business, a lot of the time, this having a good friend is a good source of leads, whether
Right.
they're even anything related to you or not. They may know somebody else. So,
Right.
yeah, just trying to, get people together and talking in a relaxed way is kind of our focus.
Wow, I really love that because two things are coming up for me. One is we've always known, you know, we have to evolve how we do business. We also have to evolve how we connect.
Right.
So, learning about your story of, igniting this organic movement
Hmm.
from social media, like LinkedIn as a professional platform,
Hmm.
a global platform, right? Activating such a connecting point,
Hmm.
first primarily on social media, and then transforming and translating that into reality, like in-person local engagement, local interaction. I think we have a lot to learn from that because many businesses, right, are not taking advantage or may not even believe in the power of connecting with people online.
Sure.
But the world has shifted, even in relationship, whether it's personal relationship, business relationships with the apps and all of the swipes that
Yeah.
people are doing
Yeah.
today. It's just also shifting what's being human connection looks like, right?
For
We all
sure.
want in person, nothing beats in person, but where that conversation starts may not be in person, but you
Sure.
can definitely translate it to in person. And this also connects with the sales cycle, like social selling. The entry point of connection may not be in person, it could start online, it could start on a page, but how we then translate it, convert that introduction, that engagement into real results, real business impact. I think you've done that beautifully. So
Thank you.
that's
You're
testament.
speaking my language. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, for sure. I think, a lot of the traditional groups, they really focused in on, the face-to-face interactions, which is great. I think that's where a lot of business, happens. You get to know somebody, you like them, you want to work together, but you're right. Social media is a great way to like kind of spread the net far and wide and then, augment the face-to-face. So I think there's a very important role there that social media can play to bring people in. And you got to do it carefully too, because you get so many spam emails every day. Like, you see people posting things that's a lot of spam, and it's hard to filter through it all. So
Right.
you have to do it in a way that kind of breaks through some of the noise and
Right.
gets people engaged a little bit. So
Oh, yes, I'm with you on that because the way I say it is that, if you're going to fish with a net, right, you're going to go into deep waters.
yeah, yeah,
You don't know what you're going to catch.
exactly,
But you have to have a process, a filtering process of then identifying, right, qualifying who's right for you, who's right for your community, who's right for your business.
right.
And really that has always been a part of sales, but I think we now have to do it at scale.
I
I
think you're
think I
right.
think I think that qualification process, we now have to learn how to do it quickly and do it with precision,
Right.
right? And in a way, one of the ways I have seen that works is putting a paywall.
Yeah, that's true.
Put, putting a paywall because social media is open to anybody anywhere in the world that has a cell phone, and which is great, right? But the moment you want to go into serious, disciplined, structured conversation that is targeted towards and oriented towards results, and there's a certain level of mindset that can go that journey with you. There's a certain level of dedication, commitment, investment required. I think one of the one ways that has worked traditionally is putting some form of paywall for people to demonstrate their own personal investment in being part of that community. So I
Absolutely.
am really for that as well. And so because people invest in things they find valuable.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and you don't want to. Yeah, I agree with you a little bit. I think a paywall for a startup may be a bit of a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be a little, keep that in mind. So it's,
Absolutely.
so our LinkedIn group, for instance, is open to anybody. Just join it and start talking, and
Yeah.
hopefully engage with local businesses. And our events are pretty affordable. Like we'll usually have like a $25 ticket, and that
Mm-hmm.
includes drinks and food, and the networking. So,
Right.
but yeah, I think the paywall also, like you said, they will invest. So
Right.
usually, we have a membership for the year that costs $399. It sounds like a lot, but it includes all of the event tickets. So
Right.
we'll meet once or twice a month. So you're spending $25 each time.
Right.
It adds up. It's better to just get the membership. So
Right.
yeah. So yeah.
Right. And there's a because as a business educator, right? So we have new entrepreneurs entering the business world today.
Mhm.
And they're entering at a time where there are different philosophies, principles, ideas of how to build and grow a business,
Mhm.
right? And so one of the things that is really happening and resulting in a lot of burnout, right, particularly in the new ecosystem standpoint, is that many people without the skills of sales conversion,
Mhm.
they're getting hung up with spending their energy and investing heavily and just pouring their heart out,
Right.
right? I say it's like the fisherman just going out there and throwing their baits
Yeah.
in the ocean without leverage.
Sure.
And so ultimately, a business exists, right, to be commercially viable, right? So
Right.
this is where I get into landing this whole business mindset is that if you're a not for profit,
Yeah.
please by all means have strong sponsors and donors to back your engagement
Mhm.
and serve your community with all of your heart,
Sure.
do good. But the moment you transform and you say, okay, I want to be a business, one of the things I say in my book, Mindset of an Entrepreneur, is like you now have to put on the cap of, the entrepreneurship cap of I'm giving services, I'm delivering services, but ultimately you also want to find, right, those who want to invest in those services and go to the next level. And that in of itself is a skill that has to be developed.
Sure.
Because without that skill, I'm seeing that those who are new to business, particularly under this current climate, they're really struggling right now. They're
Sure.
doing everything people are telling them to do, which is to serve, which is to give, which is to nurture, but there's burnout. So that's when I teach and coach sales
Sure.
as a principle, there's also a mindset of selling that ultimately the way you're going to grow your business is to nurture communities that is not just you invested, but they are also invested. So that's really the principle behind business. Otherwise, we're all just running charity organizations. So that's
Oh.
where that business education, when people come to me, when my students come to me, they're coming in frustrated, burnt out, they're doing everything that they're supposed to do, but it's not translating into the growth of their bottom line. So that's where that recommendation is from.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. Yeah, and traditional business models are still good. They still work, but you're
Mhm.
right. The newer, younger generation coming in may have a different way of doing things a little bit.
Right.
We see preferences when we're selling people. Like, some of the older crowd prefers a phone call. Got to give them a call. If you start texting details on a project, sometimes it
Mhm.
doesn't. It's not as good as just talking. Either face to face or on the phone. So,
Right.
and the
Right.
younger crowd, they may prefer more of a, send me a text or reach me on
Absolutely.
social media or whatever. So yeah,
Right. I
yeah,
love it. I love it because one of the most beautiful things that I see in the world of business today is really the concept of social selling,
hmm
of that social interaction that allows us to connect, assess, generate interest, socialize, whether online or in person. And then, see what happens from there in terms of interest generated in, your business, right?
Right.
And also you being able to invest in a community and help connect other people to your network or other people's network as well. So in a way, business hasn't changed. I think the tools and how we go about it is what's adjusting.
Right.
And
There's
the
always new tools. Right.
new
Right.
tools, definitely new approaches. And also in the sales world, what we're also finding is that the length, right, the duration from the initial connection to the transaction is being influenced by how quickly you can ignite trust, right? So what I also want to connect to with the work you're doing, I suspect that's also one of the values that your community is uncovering for your members.
Sure. Yeah.
The trust side of business is that by belonging to the same business network,
Right.
we
Yeah.
tend to
Yeah. You
trust.
get to learn more. Like, so, I study communication, and face to face is the richest form, right? If you do video chat, you're losing some of that. When you do audio only, it's like you lose some of the
Mm,
visual cues,
mm,
which is the reason our marketing company is called Q Camp. It's about social cues, watching body language when you talk to people. So,
mm.
um, I think you're right. Like I think when you meet face to face at a networking group, you really get to know people a little bit. And they say there's that stage with no like and trust. And when you get to the trust stage is when they're able to like say, yeah, let's do business together or work together or whatever. So
Yes. Wow. Okay. So 2020,
yeah, yeah,
COVID.
right.
How did you lead your team through that, season?
I struggled. It was a tough time for everybody. We're a small local business that, we didn't qualify for a lot of the aid that was out there. And a lot of the group stuff, the networking group, like we're like, oh my gosh, like we can't meet face to face. So what do we do? We took everything online, 100% virtual, made everything free. So this, show up and keep the, in the back of your head, the business group in the, so you're still exposed to the brand. So remember who Naperville Business Network was and is, and we're still going forward, and we'll see you on the other side of this. So it was hard. It was very hard for a lot of, small businesses, us included. And so yeah, there's a lot of pivoting that you have to do when, these kind of things come out of nowhere like that. So
Mhm.
COVID was a hard thing for us. So, but I feel like the group has come out of it and emerged a lot stronger. So we went back to face meetings again. Not that virtual is bad, like it's just a good way to kind of mix it up. So I'd still love to do more virtual stuff, just because people are, in the middle of their day and they may be able to hop on a, a presentation for a little while and go back to their work. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's a good way you got to mix things up and use all the available tools out there.
I
So
agree. Like virtual is very convenient right now. You don't have to invest too much energy into,
right, yeah,
suiting up and getting ready and
yep,
driving your car. But ultimately, the biggest value is still in person. So I agree with that. Yeah, COVID was quite interesting. But one of the things that I observed is that those who, like you, pushed through, showed up in a way you actually you learned so much and you gained strength that I now see that people can deploy and they now have more force, more impact. Because while people like you were like still pushing really, really hard, I also heard people who just said, you know what, I'm just going to sit down, shut it all down, and do nothing. And what I'm also seeing today is that those who will now lead the future in a way are those who learned from that era,
sure,
because the
yeah,
future is going to be more digital,
yeah, I think so, right,
and there's a muscle there's a muscle you have to build to be able to merge the physical and digital. And this is even one of the things that 8 9 years ago when I worked for Walmart, we
right,
already knew that the future of human interaction, of commerce, the impact of digital on retail, on business was going to be drastic. We knew this was coming. And I think maybe the last 3 years was dress rehearsals.
yeah, yeah, for sure,
I think it was preparation. So, but I also want to say for you to continue to lead, because not everybody has built that digital muscle yet, right? And so part of the journey is still helping our communities get really comfortable with this being the way of the future
Yeah, it kind of
and
was
being
forced upon
agile.
us. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, it was
right.
forced upon a lot of people. Like, people they're for a real reason are like, oh,
Hmm.
let's grocery shop online, you Instacart or Walmart, like you had a part in developing that. So, yeah, those are big changes, and you're right, it has changed the landscape. Amazon has become like huge from this because of the pandemic. So,
Right.
yeah,
So, how do you see your community integrating digital? Are they embracing it? Are they exploring it? Are they welcoming it? Or are they like, let's see where this goes?
yeah, I think everybody's kind of open ended there. I mean, it really depends on the person too. Like some people have fully embraced it, and others are kind of like, I prefer the old school way, this more face to face stuff. So I think you just kind of have to offer a variety, and certain people will gravitate to one or the other, and just constantly be aware of what's changing and how it's evolving. And there's always going to be a new social network that we can try, and so we'll bring that in. So we started on LinkedIn. We use Facebook, Instagram, all the others. We've been reaching out to people on Nextdoor, which is a more of a community like oriented neighborhood by neighborhood thing. So you just got to keep trying stuff and see what works.
I love that. And for us in Aurora, I think we have a lot to learn because what I was also sharing earlier is this idea that an individual,
Mm-hmm.
not the government, not an established entity, right? This spirit, this innovation, spirit, this creative spirit, I also see it as the side of us that listens to the needs of people and rises up to meet that need if we feel that we have the capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is leadership. I think that is the power of leadership. It's not just figuring it out, but just choosing to meet the needs of other people.
Sure.
And so,
Yeah.
so that's what I believe you've done. And as I'm here in Aurora, I want to also encourage other people that you don't have to wait for the government to help you nurture and contribute to your community, even particularly the business side of things like entrepreneurship, ecosystem. Whether you're a new startup or you're a business that have been around for 10 years or you've been around for 25 years, that we all need that community support, community investment. So we don't have to wait for the government to do it. So I want to use that as your story as an example of what you're doing in Naperville, that you're an individual with exceptional skills and you and your family decided to just grow, bring people together, nurture them, serve them, and then see what happens from there.
Sure, yeah, and I think you're right. A lot of it is just kind of organic the way it happens. Just listening to people, getting feedback, and just being of use. Be useful is a good way to think of it. If you can be useful to somebody to help them, to give back, it usually comes back around. And I don't say advocate for this doing it to get something back later. I think if you just continually, have that as your mindset,
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of naturally works that way. So
Right. So
reciprocity.
yeah,
Yeah.
let me ask you, why do you think we don't do that? What's the fear? What's the hesitation? Because it does take a certain mindset that believes in abundance, that believes in the more, right, mentality, not the less.
Sure.
What's holding us back from coming together as a business community and creating more impact in the world?
That's a great question. I think that could be an entire show right there. I mean, it's almost a spiritual mindset. I feel like you have to think in abundance instead of limiting, that limited mindset. And I think when you first start out in business, at least for us, it was you picture the more direct route of like, I need a client, I want to go talk to so and so, and I hope like the first time I talk to them, they're going to see the value. And you're right, it's something you do over time. You build trust. I think when you network, you kind of expand your network through other people's networks.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that trust factor, starts to come up there as well. Because if somebody really likes you and trusts you, they're going to tell their friends about you, and that leads to more
Mm-hmm.
abundance. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's a definite, it's a mindset for sure that you have to
Right.
have.
But and hopefully we can nurture more of that mindset, because what I have seen is that it does take a certain belief system and a certain type of mindset and certain principles that governs behavior and actions to actually create not just individual wealth, but
Mhm.
actually community oriented wealth.
Sure.
And so, for me, as I've studied at the global level in terms of wealth creation principles, international trade development, right? Economic development. And as I've looked at regions around the world, what remains true is that wealth building in of itself is almost like a religion.
Sure, it
You
is.
know, it's almost like a belief system that governs behavior, a way of thinking that is oriented towards learning, becoming a student of life, right? Because the more we know, the more we can do in a way, the more skills we can develop, the more impact we can have, because we can actually increase the value of our contribution into society.
Sure.
So one
Yeah.
of the things I tell my students is you get to decide how much you want to contribute to the world.
Oh, for
And
sure.
then the world gets to decide how they want to reward you financially for that contribution.
Right.
And so when I also go into legacy, this idea of legacy being, right, the magnitude of your work, the impact of your work, the influence of your work, and the longevity is going to be determined by even usefulness, right?
Sure.
Usefulness in terms of you can contribute to the world, but utility behind your work. How many people find your work useful?
Right.
How many people see value in your contribution, and to what extent is that value, and can that value can it be translated into commerce? Are people willing to pay you for that value,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Because there are many things that we consider valuable today, that which is also the shift in the world of business. And I see the struggle a lot in entrepreneurship, right? Those who are starting, is that there are certain services that, say, 5 years ago, you would have delivered to the world and people would have been willing to pay you for. That in today's world has been replaced by ChatGPT, as example, AI.
Yeah, that's true.
So this is also why businesses has to reevaluate the concept of value management.
Yeah.
Right? So there are things that the community, the world is saying is valuable, but there's a certain there are levels to value.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There are things that we find valuable enough to pay for it, and there are things like we find it as a utility, common use. And in a way, even today in the world of sales, there are certain level of education that now has to be bundled with your product and services, that in the past you may consider it as, you can exchange for it in transaction. But the world and consumer is now asking you to give it for free. Like, educate us into buying your product and services. And that education in of itself now is a utility.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of times to sell, you're right. You have to just educate for free. So,
Right.
yeah, there's a lot of that happening. I think you're right.
Right. It's just this whole concept of it's a new mindset. I think it's a new wave. And even in retail, we saw this, like, even when I did a lot of research years ago behind the future of digital, you would see that consumers weren't making like a straight line to, for example, I want that mascara. I'm just, commodity, the things that we buy.
Right.
On the consumer journey to buying, now you have this, who else has used this mascara? We go on YouTube and we want to watch we want to watch other people using that product. And also we want to listen to what they have to say and their own experience. And out of consuming that content, we will decide if it's for us.
Sure.
So we are no longer looking to the retailer to tell us this is for us. We're like, I'll decide.
Yeah, the community aspects are huge on that.
Exactly.
Yeah, years ago, you're right. You'd go to the movies and see what they did, and you'd copy that, or that was the trend, right? And now it's your friends. You might read reviews on Yelp or Google or whatever to see what the community says, or you may ask a buddy like, "Oh, did you like that product?" And there's a lot more of that kind of social selling going on for
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the future, because in the world before, businesses would dictate what was available and just expect people to buy. But now the phone, the digital impact on purchase journey, sales journey, consumer journey is now greatly influenced by the world of content. And so part of the strategy behind social selling and media and content now has to do with businesses taking a proactive approach to actually own the content that influences consumer, which is another conversation entirely because I teach that. But
Yeah,
from a computer human interaction consumer journey, right? And just thinking about just the mindset of that journey is just fascinating to me, and just seeing how retail and commerce continues to evolve and be impacted by digital. So that's where that is
absolutely.
coming
Yeah.
from.
Yeah, it's very interesting to
Awesome.
watch that. Yeah.
Yes.
Definite trend that's changing things, everything. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
So, just in wrapping up, I usually like to, engage my guest on just personal stories of success in terms of success principle, your own personal success philosophy. What would that be if I'm to say, Matt, what's helped you be successful?
That's a great question. Yeah, yeah, there's I think I went to school for a long time, and a lot of people, like, I think it's not just what you know, but it's who you know, and like getting yourself out there. And after the pandemic that we were just talking about, like, it's hard to, some people are out of that kind of rut that they were in, so you got to get yourself out, and do stuff, push your boundaries a little bit. So yeah, I think that's definitely one thing. I always have that kind of give back mentality as well. So you mentioned earlier that I'm part of the board for the Naperville Outdoor Alliance, and we try to give back. Through the park district, through the school district, we've done projects where we help underprivileged kids participate, for instance, in like the park district programs that they couldn't otherwise afford. So doing some of that. We did a really cool bike program where we brought bikes actually to the Naperville North High School, and some of these kids had never ridden a bike before. So stuff like that, just giving back to the community, putting others first, and trying to see what their needs are, what they could use a hand with. This helping brainstorm through, and apply your expertise or your experience or whatever you have, and just help them solve a problem. So yeah, that's kind of
Yeah,
my mentality there.
the,
Yeah.
the world needs more people like you because
Well,
I
thank you.
think, yes, I think also I personally, my personal philosophy behind business is it's excellence in service. So you're gonna serve anyway.
Right.
You're
Yeah,
gonna
that's
serve
true.
anyway, and I think those who do that well, those who prioritize serving, their community, serving people, and whether as a not-for-profit or within the world of business, either way, success is going to happen because there are not enough people in the world that prioritize the service to to good humans. So thank you for being that,
Oh,
and
of course. Yeah, that's what it's
definitely
all about. Yeah,
awesome.
for sure.
So
Yeah, thank
thank you
you.
for reminding us what this is all about. So I really appreciate you're coming down to Aurora, joining us and sharing your experience in building and nurturing the business community in Naperville. And I'm sure that here in Aurora, we continue to do the same because I believe that greater impact is made in community, not just as an individual. So it's just one of the themes for today's show of just encouraging people to not just think about their own needs, but to go out there and touch other people's lives. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Yeah, everybody brings their own perspective, and this showing up to these things, everybody is welcome. Not, you don't have to be from Naperville to come to our events. So anyone in Aurora, Aurora or anywhere else around the
Yeah.
area, they're all welcome. We're going to be starting other chapters. We have one that we're going to launch in up in St. Charles soon.
Okay.
We have another group in Schaumburg, so we're trying to just help
Ecosystem.
the whole.
What's your website? Where can people find you and learn more about your
The
program?
Naperville Business Network's website is at naperbiz.net. So
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
please check it out.
And your marketing company as well?
Yeah, Q Camp, CUE Camp, so CUECAMP.com. So
Fantastic. So
yeah,
yeah, check him out. Like, listen, we all need to grow and also bring businesses to, this region as well. So thank you so much for doing that.
yeah. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you, everyone. It's been a great episode on Quantum Leap. And remember that we have greater impact in communities. So, as we continue to nurture the Aurora business community, also think beyond just Aurora, because this region has incredible potential to keep nurturing the business community. I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.